What is the world's oldest profession? When I first read the title of my talk to my mom, she asked me, genuinely concerned, why I was doing a talk on prostitution, of all things. I was frankly a bit surprised because I had no idea where she could have gotten that from. But you learn something new every day. And that day I learned that the title of my talk was a centuries-old euphemism for sex work. But what I'll be sharing with you all today is something far more ancient, far more inspiring in my opinion, and I promise, far more family-friendly. And I know some of you might be thinking, why can't I just change the title of my talk? It's not that difficult. Yes, but first of all, I think it makes for a pretty great hook. And also, this was a question, word for word, on my AP Literature quiz, which was meant to test our knowledge of Act 5, Scene 1 of Shakespeare's Hamlet, where a gravedigger claims that digging is the world's oldest profession, as Adam was one before anyone else. But even looking at this question from a biblical perspective, I disagree. Long before humans ever lifted tools, long before Adam ever tilled the soil, or even existed, nature was already practicing the world's most ancient craft, engineering. Every element in the story of Adam and Eve, from the apple, to the tree, to the serpent, to the garden itself, wasn't just randomly placed there. It was a product of precise construction that in its cells, nutrients, and structures evolved from countless tiny changes over unfathomable time spans. Something that might seem simple to us today, like an apple, is actually the result of a long, unforgiving process that's been shaping living things ever since the first life appeared on Earth, 3.5 to 4.1 billion years ago. Nature became the world's first engineer through the process of evolution. Mutations, survival challenges, environmental pressures all contributed to a place where successes thrived, but failures just simply died out. And this resulted in some of the most brilliant, optimized, and efficient systems known to man. We have the wings that can push against air, allowing birds to fly. Leaves can harvest energy from sunlight. The human brain allows me to be on the stage today, walk around, and give you guys this talk in a meaningful manner. And some of these natural technologies we don't even fully understand yet. And for the longest time, people have been wondering how they can harness the powers that they see in nature. And one of the most famous people to do this is none other than Leonardo da Vinci. Though he is more well known for his art, such as the Mona Lisa, which immortalized him in history, he was also an inventor. He filled entire notebooks with sketches of flying machines, of gliders, monowings, but also of birds. Diagrams of their wings, depictions of them in flight, because he understood something crucial. If he wanted to bring the power of flight from birds to humans, he had to first study that organism that had already mastered flight. And this idea is even more relevant today. Some of the world's greatest technologies came from observing nature. Allow me to introduce you to the concept of biomimicry, engineering inspired by the world around us. And one of my favorite examples of biomimicry comes from my own birth year of 2008, when NASA and Speedo decided to team up. Scientists researched shark skin, which has these small tube-like structures called denticles that control how water flows over the body. And by mimicking these denticles in fabric, created the laser racer swimsuit, a swimsuit that reduced drag so much that 98% of all swimming medals won at the 2008 Beijing Olympics were by athletes wearing this exact suit. Michael Phelps, 8 legendary gold medals in that one Olympics, were earned wearing this exact suit. It was so overpowered that it even led to rule changes by the swimming government body. But sadly, not all of us can benefit from a shark skin-inspired swimsuit. However, doing research for this presentation, I began to notice that nature-inspired inventions appear even in the most mundane moments of my day-to-day life. Every day before fencing practice, I visit H-Mart, a Korean supermarket where I get burdock with kimbap with burdock root. And it's the perfect pre-practice snack. But little did I know that that same root I was eating inspired something I use at practice constantly. Velcro. That small, annoying burr that clings to my socks and shirt when I go backpacking in the summer, inspired a material that can fasten toddler shoes before they learn how to tie their laces, that can mount things on walls, or even close the collapse of my fencing uniform. A tiny hitchhiking plant was able to revolutionize modern materials science. But sometimes, nature feels the need to humble human designs a little bit more directly. In one Japanese study, researchers placed oak flakes in a petri dish, with each oak flake representing a major Japanese city. And they then introduced a slime mold, allowing it to grow for some time. And after just a few hours, the slime mold created a network of nutrient pathways that almost directly mirrored Japan's complex railway system. A railway system that took hundreds or thousands of Japan's best engineers to design and build, reproduced by something as simple as a mold in mere hours. Instead of trying to out-engineer nature, which we already do far too much, we need to look to the planet that created us, that has sustained life for billions of years, for the solutions of the future. Recently, in the past decades, we've begun to understand the impact, the harm that we do to our surroundings and our planet through our industry and agriculture. And as we look for the sustainable solutions of the future, the first place we should be looking is what's around us. For example, agriculture that mimics natural ecosystems, helps reduce fertilizer runoff. But what's the good in it for farmers? It also produces healthier crops. Certain fungi, through a process called mycoremediation, are able to break down toxic waste that creates potential to clean the land scarred by industrial damage, to prevent toxins from getting into our waterways and our lands. A coral-inspired process called mineralization helps produce concrete, which dramatically reduces carbon emissions, sometimes even yielding carbon-negative results. But if we want to avoid a woolly world, we need to work with nature rather than against it. And I promise, it'll respond with ideas and opportunities we might have never imagined. In Frank Herbert's Dune, which was adapted into a wildly successful movie series starring Timothy Chalamet, the Fremen, or desert people, harvest water from the desert air with condensers. But Earth's fauna isn't that far behind. The Stenocara beetle of the Namib Desert uses its ridged back to collect water from the desert air. inspiring water collection systems that could be deployed in arid regions all around the world. The sad truth is, though, clean water access isn't only an issue in the desert. There's millions of people around the world in different climates, countries, and continents that struggle with access to clean drinking water, contributing to disease and death. But nature has a solution for that too. Water filtration systems inspired by things like plant stems are very cost efficient and also don't harm the world around us. But access to clean water is a very big issue. We all already know that, and there's solutions being put in place to fix it. What about the small things? How can nature help us fix small issues? Imagine you're just strolling down the street and you trip on a crack in the concrete. You think it's just a nuisance, but concrete cracks alone in the US cost us $80 billion a year to repair. But certain species of limestone-producing bacteria were found to remain dormant in concrete until exposed to moisture, after which they start sealing the cracks from the inside out. Wind farm layouts based on how fish school in the ocean generate more energy with far less turbulence. And a surgical glue inspired by slug sticky slime helps save thousands of patients because it can survive the harshest conditions within the human body. But all come clean. I lied earlier in my talk. I said that we shouldn't try to out-engineer nature. But we already have, and we've succeeded. We've built skyscrapers. We've left Earth. We've split up the very atoms that make up our existence. But we must never forget that nature has been engineering for billions of years longer. And it has ran more experiments, failed more trials, and created more systems than humanity will ever be able to achieve. So if we want to both keep the human race progressing and also preserve the health and longevity of our planet, we need to pay more attention to the ancient engineer that began its work long before we were even here. Nature holds the blueprint, and our job is to learn.